Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Umokobi Richard. Welcome to Econometrics by Richard. I'm going to take you through the impulse response function. If you've not watched our previous class, you can watch our previous classes, our previous videos before this, and then you can see how we got to the VAR, how we corrected and get the appropriate lag for the model, and then now we are going to estimate the impulse response function, the variance decomposition, and historical decomposition. It's going to be very, very brief. So after estimating and you know your model is okay, and make sure there's no issue of serial correlation. So you go to view, and then you see impulse response. You click on impulse response. So most times, if you want all the shock, the impulses, you want to see a full graph of all your model, you can click your impulses should have all your variables and your responses should have all your variables, and then you click on OK. So this is your result. This is your result. You can actually interpret this result anyhow you want it. You can see this is a inflation to inflation. The shock causes an increase in inflation. A shock to itself, it has a positive impact. Then the response of inflation to exchange rate shock. So exchange rate shock actually causes an increase in initial increase in inflation. So all this is the response of inflation to all the variables we have here, and this next line, the responses of exchange rate to all the shocks. So most time you can be able to organize the shock if you want. So you can go to impulse response. For example, if you want to look at only the response of inflation, you can clean all this data and look at only the response of inflation. So there are a lot of ways to go about it. So you can see only the response of inflation to all the variables. So this is how inflation responds. So you can also look at it. For example, you can see the shock to inflation causes an increase. The shock to the response of inflation to exchange rate shock causes also an initial increase, though it was at 0, but it actually increased. The same thing with this model, and you can see that all of them returned back to their equilibrium. Okay, we can go back to the impulse response, and let's add this previous the previous data set so that I can explain something much more better. You copy and then you paste here. You paste. Let's see the shock from only inflation. Let's see what it's going to have on the variables. So you can see the shock from only inflation. Look at the impact it have on other variables. So the shock from inflation actually causes an increase in itself. It also on exchange rate, it brings about an increase. So exchange rate increases based on inflation shock, and also all share index also increases based on inflation shock. We can also see that credit to private sector also increases due to inflation shock, but the response of government expenditure, it decreases due to inflation shock in our model. Same with money supply. Money supply increases due to inflation shock. So these are the interpretations. So you can check each of the interpretation based on your model. You can restructure, add based on what I've showed you. You can add the various shocks and the responses you want. Okay, let me show you the next. Okay, let's use exchange rates. Let's use exchange rates. You can add exchange rates here. Yes, so that you have a better view. This is for you to have better view of the whole. You can see exchange rate, how exchange rates moved. So you can see the response of inflation to exchange rate shock. It was 0, but later it caused an increase. Exchange rate shock caused an increase on itself, and also all share index also increased because of exchange rate shock. We can also see credit to private sector actually increase due to exchange rate shock. We can see government expenditure actually reduce a little bit and then spike later in the future due to exchange rate shock. We can see money supply also caused an initial increase due to exchange rate shock. So these are various. So with your data set, you can have different interpretation based on these shocks and this will make you in writing your article or your thesis on anything you're doing on the VAR methodology. So you can click on view, and you can go, I'll show you historical decomposition, how to do the historical decomposition. So this is the way for the historical decomposition. So so you see the only component is showing now is the exchange rate. So let me click on, because of the because this is because of the correction, the modification we did in the other place. So let's make it okay, so that you can have a full grasp of the whole model. So this is the time. So in this part, you can be able to modify your graph from these little drop down boxes you're seeing here. You can change it. um, uh, hmm, Display formats, multiple graphs, combined graphs, decomposition, display variables, components. uh, okay, yeah, so we can actually do all those things here. Okay, okay, I want something I can be able to see very well, so I can explain it to you. So this is basically the historical decomposition. Okay, let me just use one variable so that it will be easier for us to have a better glimpse of the whole thing. Okay, let's just go to uh, the display variable. Let's use inflation. Let's just click on only inflation and see, so that it will be easier. So okay, so this is the result of the historical decomposition for inflation. So I'm trying to zoom so that we can be able to see it very well. I want to, so that we can be able to view. Where's the view? Um, no, no, no. Just want to increase. Just want to increase the size. No. EViews have different okay, I think it's the other the other years you can be able to zoom. I wanted to zoom it, but okay, but that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so based on this, I don't know, I hope you can actually see this. This is inflation on inflation, how to the historical decomposition, how each variable affects like how each variable affects inflation. You can see inflation, it's in the whole the inflation is in the whole the whole model, each table. So you can see inflation on itself, how inflation has been affecting itself in the past years, the different shocks they have. Currently, inflation drives inflation in the model, so it's almost the same thing for each variable. We can see exchange rates, the movement of exchange rates, when it was negative and when it was positive. That's what this historical decomposition tells you. You can, let me just click on all of them so that we can have a better grasp of it. I don't like the way that it's so tiny. Okay, so you can still see it's the same thing for other variables. You will be able to see each variable, how each variable affects each other in the historical decomposition. So you can be able to, I would advise you just click on them one by one to be able to see them properly. Okay, let me check this. Let me click on all this and see from the components. So that, let me see whether we can be able to. Okay, so you can see inflation. Okay, okay, okay. So this one will show you how only inflation affects other variables in the model. Okay, so that's just it to look at the historical decomposition. That's what it tells you. I think it's just how each variable affects the other variables in the model. Uh, you can actually include baseline in decomposition and anything you want to do. These different ways you can go about it. You can add your weights, different weights. It depends on you, but this doesn't align. You can just click on this and click on the particular variable you have. I think your if you have your own table, your own chart, you'll be able to see it properly and click on the particular one you want. And I think you have a better graph and you can see it well in your own computer. But I wanted you to see it, so but I think I was not able to zoom for you to see properly here. So when you have your own data set, after clicking historical, I think you'll be able to zoom and see what I'm explaining. So the next one we are going to check for the variance decomposition. The variance decomposition is like checking into the future, what the future holds for you. So this is the variance decomposition. This is in the next 10, it's like forecasting variance decomposition, like in the future, what will happen to these variables. Historical decomposition is telling you in the past how these different variables affect each other, different shocks affect each other. Then variance decomposition is telling you that in the next 10 to 5 years, depends, you can choose. We chose 10 years, 10 periods. So which means from we stopped at 2020, I think the time period. Okay, you can check the time period and know the time we stopped. So in the next 5 periods, in the next 10 periods, so if we stopped at 25 months now, so the next 10 periods, this first period now is 25 month 10, you can count it like that. So looking at it now, you can see that inflation affects itself by almost 88%. You can see the effect. This one, inflation is affected by exchange rates by 10th period in about 9 points. You can see that inflation affects itself the most. Using your model as a way of doing this simulation. So you can see the different even for exchange rates. You can see for exchange rates. Exchange rate is not really affected by itself in the next 10 periods. It is actually affected. Exchange rate is affected. The first one is inflation. Actually, it's still affected by 7%. Next to it is credit to private sector. Okay, so we can see all share index. Let's see all share index. Affect itself the most by the 10th period. I'm trying to see if there's anyone that doesn't affect itself by the 10th period. Credit to private sector. 66 is actually lowering down. The next thing to affect credit to private sector is exchange rates. You can see, so exchange rate is a good factor because it's affecting itself and another variable in the model. So go to government expenditure. Affects itself very well. It's 8% is a good score. And then the next one we have is money supply. Money supply, it affects itself 64. The next to affect is the exchange rate after 64. So you can see exchange rate is a very good is a variable that affects the Nigerian economy a lot. So exchange rate is actually really listening. So this graph, this is just a table. You can look at it with multiple combined graphs as a stack graph. You can see it like this as a stack graph. You can also see it as a table. There's number, or you can use stack graph. Stack graph is actually also beautiful. You can use it in your paper or your model, and then you can use combined graph. But I don't really like this combined graph because you'll not be able to tell your story very well. The multiple graph, you can see how it is, but I think the table and this stacked graph gives a better understanding of how you want to interpret your results. So this is for impulse response function, historical decomposition, and variance decomposition in EViews for the VAR model. In the next class, we'll be showing how to do the cause and effects relationship using the VAR. So after doing the VAR, we call it granular causality. What it does, which variable affects which, does this affect? You can also put it in your report or your article. It's actually a very good thing. You can do a there's a lot of people on granular causality. I'll show you how to test for it using the VAR model. Thank you for listening.